You're on.
And I'm muted. Yay. Ted Bear would like to be admitted, but he's not.
Three people watching on YouTube. Okay.
This is on.
Yeah, he's on mute.
Holly, you should know that we're already begun the live stream to YouTube, and I'll be letting people in the room in just about 1 minute.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Block Association's 2021 annual meeting on YouTube and on Zoom, and we're live streaming now to YouTube, where I expect we also have a growing audience. We'll commence proceedings in just a moment. We're going to start with Sergeant Pallone from the 20th Precinct as as he has another meeting shortly. So just give us a minute and we'll get going.
You want to sit here? No, thank you.
And please keep your mics muted so we can have an easy time hearing our guests. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody, and let's get started. I believe we have Sergeant Pallone from the 20th Precinct with us, and we'll start with Sergeant Pallone. I think I see our neighborhood coordination officers also with him, and maybe we can get a little update about what's going on in our neighborhood and the precinct in general. Welcome, Sergeant Pallone.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks everybody for having us.
All right, so we gotta go over the 7 major crimes in Sector Adam in our sector. We basically cover from West 70 to West 59, from Central Park West all the way to Riverside Park. So week to date, we're gonna talk from, the report is gonna be from 6/7, week of 6/7 to 7/4. The 28-day period, basically, between 6/7 and 7/4. Motor, we have 0. Rape, we have 0. Robbery in the last 28 days, we had 2. Compared to 2020, we only have 1. At the same period, basically, we're talking about from June 7th to July 4th. Felony assaults this year on this 28-day period, we had 3. Compared to last year, we only have 1. Burgs, we have 2. Compared to last year's, we have 5. Ground larceny, we have 23. Compared to last year at the same time, we had 19. As you can see, there is a little increase in when it gets to crime, and from 2021 to 2020, and part of it because last year there weren't much going on, with the pandemics, and now that everything is opening up, crime is going up basically, and that's all over, not just Sector Adam, but in other sectors and other precincts as well. Our big issue here is Target when it gets to ground larceny. Target, they open and we're taking a lot of reports from them. Unfortunately, with Target, they call a few hours later or a few days later after the incidents, and it takes time for us to apprehend the suspects. Yeah, this is pretty much it.
So overall, the city is pretty much 0% crime increase or decrease. They're about even from last year. The precinct is up, but we're being driven by a lot of grand larcenies, mostly scams. If you have elderly neighbors that you know about, please tell them. Somebody's asking for gift cards or requesting banking information. Tell them, do not trust these people. Our robberies in the last 28-day period were all shoplifting's gone bad. Some usually overzealous security guards will try to confront the shoplifter, and at this point, this is where we've had people pull out a weapon, and then usually it doesn't escalate from there, but it's still considered a robbery. We've had a few unfortunate fatal accidents in the precinct. One on 6-4 in Amsterdam, one on 8-6 in Central Park West, and a near fatal on 7-3 in Broadway. So we are trying to do a lot of outreach for informational. We've visited some senior homes. We've handed out flyers at corners. Anything you guys can help with, if you could pass this information along to neighbors, letting them know.
And Sergeant Pallone, these accidents, these are with vehicles and pedestrians, or scooters and pedestrians, is that right?
Yes, one's a scooter and a pedestrian. One was a U.S. postal truck and a bicycle, and the other was a DHL delivery truck and a pedestrian.
And you know about that, we've been doing a lot of things in terms of trying to educate people about following traffic rules. We've also been enforcing a lot of traffic. We've been writing summonses all over Sector Adam. Today alone, we had a few summonses on Sector Adam. We wrote a summon on West 6th Ave and Columbus Avenue. We also wrote another summon on West 66 and Central Park West. And well, actually, that's three summonses in West 66 and Central Park West. We also wrote one in West 60 and Columbus Avenue, West 65 and Columbus Avenue, West 64 in Amsterdam, West 65 in Amsterdam, and that's just in Sector Adam. So, and that's been basically every day we've been going out there, write summonses and trying to enforce the traffic rules. And also at the same time, we're trying to educate people, bikes and also cars, trying to tell them, how the importance of following basically traffic rules.
I know you had been out with them on Central Park West. We're going to have a sign put out there as well, somewhere between 6-4 and 8-6, just for safety measures, trying to get people slow down.
And for the folks on this Zoom and watching on YouTube, can you describe these issues that you're seeing that are directly in our neighborhood? You were talking about.
I'm sorry, Chris, can you say that again?
For the folks who are with us now, can you talk about the issues that you're seeing directly in our neighborhood? For example, you were talking about summonses issued on 65th and 66th Street. Can you just share with everybody what you're seeing, what these issues are?
I mean, we're basically going after like hazardous violations, people that are doing things that could hurt pedestrians, fail to yield, disobeying signs, going through red lights, things of that nature. And not just cars too, bicycles as well. They have to follow the same rules, and unfortunately we see a lot of the times they're not. And sometimes it isn't the vehicle's fault. So we have to enforce that equally.
I have to say that the time I spent with the officers on Central Park West and 65th Street, it was remarkable the lack of attention folks were paying to the signals and the signage. People just blowing through lights, and there was a police car parked there, and nobody seemed to care. It was quite something.
Tourists, I'm sure tourists don't know that they have to follow those red lights, but people from the city, they just get so used to it. They go through the light 100 times and they don't get hit, but that 101st, you could end up, in a hospital.
And this is exactly why we go out there and trying to educate people. We hand them flyers and we talk to them. Me and my partner, we've been on West 66. West 65 and Central Park West, where we passed out flyers. We spoke to people. We try as much as possible. We went to businesses in Sector Adam, spoke to restaurants and delivery guys, trying to talk to them about the importance of following those traffic rules.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I know you have another meeting to go to, and we appreciate your taking the time to be with us and your service to the community. And we look forward to, I believe there's a Build the Block meeting. I think it's in mid-August coming up for Sector A. So
yes.
We look forward to knowing about that. And will that be on Zoom, or will that be in
That will
person?
be on Zoom.
We're thinking we have one more Zoom, and then hopefully we'll be getting back to in person.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
If you want to open up questions, that's up to you.
I think
For minutes.
Gail Brewer is going to speak after you, and I think she's got a hard stop. So,
Okay.
Hey, I'm okay, Chris. If they want to take questions, I'm in the car. I'm okay. I got
okay. Well, then,
I will ask a question if you don't mind.
sure, Assemblymember Rosenthal.
Okay. Hi, everyone. And to the officers, the three incidents where people died. One was a postal service truck, one was a DHL, and one was an e-scooter, which Brad and I have legislation about. What was the story with the postal and the DHL? Were the drivers seemingly at fault, or was the pedestrian not watching? What do you have info on that?
So they're both are still under investigation.
Right.
Preliminary, the postal truck, it just seemed like a terrible accident.
Yeah.
The DHL driver, that is an arrest was made, and we can't talk about anything past that because it's still going through the court process.
Okay. I mean, so those kinds of things happen in a city, right? It seems like the flagrant violation of all the traffic laws and rules that's like endemic to our neighborhoods right now. And I wondered if you can't stand there all day and try to flag down and give tickets, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen anything that the NYPD has been doing citywide, or any new ideas aside from like enforcement weeks or days, so everybody's careful during that week and then they go back maybe a few weeks later to their old habits? Like, is it something to do with like more cameras, more tickets? What do you think a more comprehensive approach, rather than what has happened, perhaps because there's not enough personnel, etc., is trying to make people obey all the traffic laws?
I mean, it's hard to say. We've been fighting
Right.
this good fight for years.
Yeah,
But
I know.
Education has really been stepped up. That's what the
Yeah.
NC is doing.
Right.
Today they went like elderly homes. What else have we done? They handed out flyers. We actually talked to Grubhub. Yeah, Grubhub. We spoke
Okay.
with their like corporate headquarters, and we're trying to get informational stuff to those guys. We know that most of them ride e-bikes, and unfortunately, they're either one of the offenders or one of the victims in accidents. So
Yeah.
we're trying to get them to pass out our flyers on our behalf, which would be nice. That's and anything you guys can help with too, we appreciate.
Right. I think the seniors are scared out of their wits. They've been scared for years because of the bicycles and all that, but now, like, they're really, really frightened because there's so many different kinds of vehicles out there, including, I'm sure you've seen these ATVs. I think it was a couple evenings ago, there was this caravan of like 30 motorcycles and ATVs just roaring up Broadway. And how do you deal with that? You can't stop them. What can you do with them, right?
Like you said, they're not going to stop. So right now, we take a report every time. We usually get camera footage. Most of them don't have license plates.
Right.
The thing that the department is harping on right now, if you see them parked anywhere, these bikes are illegal to have in the city, period. So we will come and we'll just take them. We will repossess them and impound them. So if you see them, call the local, your precinct, and we'll. There has been some initiatives. We don't have any gas stations in the 2.0, but other precincts have had initiatives. Eventually, when these guys come to gas up, they get them there and they arrest them, and then they take the bike. Okay.
Maybe we should do like a sting. We'll put like cheap gas here, and then you'll be there waiting for them. Okay. Maybe it's something like all the electeds, and Chris says with the block associations, the new group, we could do some like district-wide education program and information session on Zoom, something like that, to like spread the word. And then Sergeant, you can be on and be a guest presenter.
Absolutely.
That would be
Something
great.
like that I think needs to happen. People are very upset and scared, and
I think it's a great idea.
yeah,
We're trying to right the ship right now as quickly and as we can.
Who's selling, officer? Who's selling these ATVs to New York City residents? Do we know?
We don't. I mean, a lot of them can come from out of state. All you have to do is cross over to Pennsylvania or Jersey, and you could buy these without a problem, or even other parts of New York. It's just in the city that they're illegal.
yeah. Well, and when we go back to Albany, we can have huge fines on them. We'll put huge fines, but I don't think that deters them actually. But we can try.
And I hope it's not a forebearer of things to come, but the other day I saw 3 cars souped up and drag racing up Broadway through our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that the ATVs are not going to turn into a car issue, which seems like it could get, be an even bigger problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, I think, thank you, officers, for being so generous with your time, and we look forward to scheduling some of these follow-up discussions.
Excellent. Thanks for having us.
All right, have a good night.
Bye.
As I mentioned earlier, I think we have Gail Brewer in between appointments, and we've promised to have her go next. So Borough President Brewer, and soon to be returning to our City Council district.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'll try to take this up. I'm in the car, so I have to be a little careful. First of all, today was a big day because we all marched up Broadway, ticker tape with essential workers, and I was honored. I took some people from my local pharmacy, and it was such exciting news for me to see them. These are not union workers, so they weren't part of any union, and they weren't going to get to walk. And they did say they were walking for all the workers in independent pharmacies. So, and it was a big deal. There were workers from all different sectors of the community, and lots of challenges in New York City right now, but it was a very big day. So I just wanted to know it was something special. These dirt bikes, we have written a letter. The police have had press conferences or ABTs. I think somebody mentioned either the assembly member or the senator about the gas stations, or maybe it was the police department. That's where we have to get them, because they have to gas up. And so my suggestion would be, although we don't have gas stations that many on the Upper West Side, we do need to, as a group, in elected officials in Manhattan, and we have to do more, and I will do more, is to work with all of the gas stations in the city, if not in Manhattan, and trying to make sure the cops are enforcing. That is the place to get them, because the cops aren't going to chase them. I see 20, 30 coming down the streets all the time. And if you chase them, something could happen. A pedestrian or an individual could get hurt. So that's not the way to address it. But they have to be confiscated at the gas station, the vehicle. So I don't know. Let's work on that together. Second thing is that I know that as time goes on, I really want to work with you, because it's right near you, with the, as borough president, as council member, with the pre-planning with the community board on whatever ABC / Silverstein, even though it's way in the future, 2 or 3 years, 4 years goes very quickly, at least in my book. And when we worked on East Midtown, East Harlem, Garment Center, I could go through a long list. It was a 2 or 3 year process. And that's the only way something comes out. So we need to start that now, and love to work with you on that. And I think that, I hate to say it, but years are going to be needed in order to do the right kind of planning. Small things like composting. I'm a big composter, and I was livid when the mayor cut the composting pickup from the schools and from residents. And I think you know that it will return in October 2021. I think there's money for that, but it's not just a 1, 2, 3. I know that in August, people can sign up, starting if they want to have a pickup. They have to call 311 or go through other online signups. And what is important, and this is upsetting to a lot of people, just so you know, is that past participants will not automatically be re-enrolled. So you have to make sure that sanitation, i.e. 311, knows that you're interested. And also, it's my understanding also, if you weren't in the neighborhood, we were fortunately, that didn't have composting in the past, you may not get it in the future. That is upsetting to people. But I just want to let you know, composting is important. We also want to mention that we have a small amount of expense money. I can't say it's a lot. Mostly what we allocate is funding for schools and parks and capital. But we have a little bit, it's on our website. The amounts could be probably a maximum of 7,500, more likely 5,000, even 3,500. And the deadline is August 20th at 5 o'clock. So, you know, we're all concerned about the storefronts and the vacancy. We passed a law maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it seems, stating that the city of New York, under the Department of Finance, has to list the owners have to list all of the vacancies and the square footage. But we waited and waited and waited. And finally, my understanding, back and forth between the city council and the administration, a couple of words got changed. Those in Albany who work on legislation know what that's like after months. And I think now everybody's agreed that this legislation can move forward. So we're waiting to get it all put up on the open data platform, which is the open data bill that I passed many years ago. And I'll let everybody know that should give us the data. And then of course the issue is, what can we do as a community, in my case, as a borough? We have to work together to try to get some owner operated and mom and pops into these storefronts. The owners keep telling me that nobody wants to rent, so on and so forth. I don't believe it. So I just want to let you know the part that I'm talking about is just a vacancy survey, not necessarily this other aspect. But I do think it's something that we should work on together. There's no question that there are more vacancies than there were pre-pandemic. I think you know that. The senior centers, it may not be of specific interest to you, but it certainly is to them. And the whole issue of you know, getting fed and socializing and so on and so forth. Definitely after much pressure, the senior centers are now allowed to open according to the mayor. But it's not so easy because some of them don't have the right staff, they don't have the right HVAC, and so on. So I just think that's a community that still needs a lot of support, just like everybody else, but they were more challenged by being shut in. And I know your block did so much to make sure that people had food and support and wellness calls and all of that. But that's a group that, as time goes on, I think needs even more support than in the past. I don't know how to deal with living in Manhattan is so expensive. And I hope that the next administration, obviously the Mayor Adams, will try to think of as being the most expensive county in the country. It's not a positive declaration. And I don't know how much is property taxes, how much is rent and the cost of living and of our apartments. But and again, there's no easy answer. There is a hopefully more substantive discussion about the property tax because there's a lawsuit that has not been cured in any way, and that has to be addressed. So I look forward to having much more discussion along those lines. We are in the borough president's office. We have hundreds of interns, and we're going to be working this summer on what exactly is the Summer Rising program. I don't need to tell Chris or some of other residents how challenged the schools were this year. I may be wrong, but I actually think that the schools are perhaps the biggest challenge we're going to have in the future, at least in the near future. We all have health, we all have housing, we all have transportation, we have many issues. But these schools have not been functioning for a very long time in terms of a child's education. I don't know how much the Summer Rising is going to help, but I'm certainly going to go to every Summer Rising summer program. We're going to be doing a lot of oversight and see if they're actually doing the maximum they can, sports, arts, academics, etc., and seeing what we can do to help the schools come September. Many of the schools lost 100 125 students. And when you lose students, you lose funding. So even though the schools are quote unquote fully funded, some of them may lose a lot of money because of the lack of students. So I'm bringing all those issues to your attention. We're all concerned about public safety, and you had that discussion earlier, but it is an ongoing one that doesn't have an easy solution. That's it. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate Chris this opportunity.
Thank you, Borough President. We look forward to welcoming you back to the neighborhood as our city council member, and have a good evening. Okay, we're gonna pivot back to well, further to what Gail was saying about local zoning issues. We have with us Sean Corsandi from Landmark West, and Sean can give us an update on the neighborhood issues in general, and maybe talk a little bit about what he sees zoning issues as we have a new mayoral and administration, and also a new borough president coming on board. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for being here. I was specifically asked to follow up on 2 issues. I'm gonna add a third because you just asked about land use specifically, but just to follow up from Gail's point about ABC, we met with CB7 and they came as our co-applicant to city planning. And in April, mid-April, we announced that we were doing the reasonable worst case development scenario. And we submitted that to the Department of City Planning. And last night at 6:32, they came back to us with responses. This is not a new effort. We've been meeting with them previously and gotten early comments. The comments that we got back are all going to be turned around this month. They range from things like add in the word avenue after Columbus to how did you come up with this? So they're very, some of them are pedestrian, some of them are substantive, some of them we've been doing it for so long we just assume things because it's in our head and we know it so well. So we're going to clean that up and send that to them by the end of July. This reasonable worst case development scenario then needs to be accepted, which will take probably 3 to 4 weeks. So we would assume that would be at the end of August, assuming things continue throughout the summer months. And with a completed land use application, then it can go before the commission. So once we return it 3 to 4 weeks, and then it goes to the commission and we can continue with the application. The application takes about 90 days. So we're looking at the end of November. And right now that's in an ideal world. So let's give a little bit of breach and we'll say the end of 2021. Once the application's complete, that's the bulk of the work, it'll go to the commission. At that point, there'll be 6 to 9 months of ULURP review. For those of you who are aware or are familiar with our reasonable worst case development scenario, we're looking at the inevitable reuse of the ABC Columbus Avenue block. This is over 2 acres of land and it's prime real estate. We are looking at a proposal that does not take 1 single square foot of development area from the developer. We're just looking at how they apportion it on the site. The first and best use is residential, especially as we hear after the pandemic, offices are hemorrhaging tenants. People are looking to co-working. People are looking at working in the office 1 to 2 days a week. And we're already talking about converting Midtown office buildings from office to residential use. So with this in mind, we're looking at ways to continue to make this a livable city for the neighbors and to accommodate more residents. And it's all on our website. What's seen on our website is the full proposal. You can see all the drawings and it is not a scare tactic by any stretch. This is what's possible under the current zoning. And please don't take it verbatim. I've had some neighbors in neighboring buildings getting very anxious. You know, why is this on the side of my building? This is a hypothetical and it's a potential with the as of right current zoning. We can easily move those buildings to the behind you or blocking a different window if you prefer. The idea is to show what's possible under the current zoning. What we'd like to see is something that would essentially bring this in line with the neighborhood. So the adjacent neighborhood is the Lincoln Square Special Zoning District. This was intentionally a carve out. ABC has been in the neighborhood since at least 1948, the nascent days of television. And they've always been a proponent against some of the changes, and they've always purposely been a carve out because of the immense amount of commercial space use that they need to run a television station. We don't expect another flagship television station to move in here. So this is just the reality of buildings aging at the rate they're going. All that's on our website. We've talked to several neighboring buildings. We're happy to talk to them more. But we're looking right now as the end of 2021, everything would be set and waiting through ULIP process, which is not a lot of work on our end, anytime from June to September of 2022. The sale happened on July 9th, it was announced, of 2018 for a 5-year sale leaseback. So that still gives us several months of give. And this is, again, not to stop development. It's just to inform the form of development to be in keeping with the neighborhood. That's the goal there.
Sean, can I ask, in addition to the community board support, who are the other key players? I'm wondering about the city council member or the borough president in guiding the ULURP, as well as, you know, just citizens of the neighborhood.
We're a little early. We've mentioned to borough president Brewer's staff what was going on, and they said keep us abreast. So they were copied on things. They've been given copies of the reasonable worst case development scenario. There's nothing right now to sign on to because the application is not in. So I've spoken with some of the electeds who are on the Zoom, and so far we've had large support by and large, and people seem to think that this is the right thing to do. And this is not about harming anyone. This is not about taking value. Ultimately, this is about avoiding hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits later, which we can't afford. The community is literally whack-a-mole going to development to development to development. It is a map amendment. Yes, I saw that question pop up. So we're changing the map for this Lincoln Square Special Zoning District. It's just going to complete the corner that's literally carved out. Other questions on ABC?
That makes sense. No, I think that's clear. You want to move on to the next whack-a-mole?
The next issue is the Excel site at 36 West 66th Street or 50 West 66th Street. We've been continuing. We were waiting for a long time to get our written decision from the Board of Standards and Appeals. Again, Gail Brewer and several other electeds were very helpful in nudging the BSA to do their job and finally write the decision. Once the decision was written, we were able to file our appeal and go to the Supreme Court in New York. We had a hearing on May 4th that, after introduction, including introductions, cumulatively took less than 40 minutes. And the judge said, the rules say that you need a majority of 3 to win, and you got 2, which is great. We knew that. And it leaves it such that our appeal is almost meaningless because you can't, if the whole point of moving to the next court is to appeal a decision, and the decision of that court is, well, no, because you already had your appeal. The process now, after that less than 40 minutes, and I don't want to tell you how many tens of thousands of dollars, is to request the transcript, which we've done. The courts are delayed in this. So although that's been ordered, there's a formality of submitting a form. Once that's in, this delays things for another 6 months, and then you have a 3-month extension. So pending next week or the week after, maybe it could happen tomorrow, add 9 months to that before we can actually push this further. I'm not trying to delay. I know this leaves a lot of ambiguity, but the answer is there's still not certainty for building. And we have a case right now that our lawyers are rather excited about. Lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, they get excited about different things. But their point is, if the courts enforce what the first judge just said, basically the appeals process is completely moot. The whole point of court is to at least hear the arguments and discuss it. And they basically opened a hearing and closed it, saying that you need to have 3 votes. And right now we have a BSA where in almost every major decision we've attended that's affected the Upper West Side, I think every major decision that's affected the Upper West Side, at least one of the 5 members is recused because they're involved in the development process or somehow with the developer. And so you're always left with 4 and always able to get a 2-2 tie, of which ours is seemingly the only one on record for the past several decades. So we're in a unique position, but we haven't given up. We only lose if we didn't appeal. So we're in that appeal process still, and unfortunately, it's a slow process. So that's why there hasn't been a lot of news to report, but the news is that it's still ongoing and expected to go on for at least another 9 months.
But Sean, does that mean that at some point the state Supreme Court could say, we're not going to hear this?
It's going to go to a panel. And we're in a position where essentially they're going to have to hear it, because if they say we're not going to hear it and that the lower court ruling decides it, so we don't have a clear definition technically by law from the BSA. We don't have a definitive answer. We have a default answer because it's a 2-2 tie. And according to the BSA's own rules, you need to have a majority of 3 to win. But in the court's eyes, that's in the BSA's rules, but in the court's eyes, a 2-2 tie is still a tie. And that's why we have this ability for an appeal. And so it's the court to make the decision because the lower jurisdiction did not affirmatively complete their action.
So this concept of the tie goes to the developer in these BSA hearings, that's just...
That's only if we stop there and move on to another issue or fold up shop and go home or whatever. But as long as you continue to the court, which we have, and we've kept this alive, we're able to continue the appeal. The bottom line still exists about the lateral mechanical space, where a developer took what's equivalent to less than 1 floor of mechanical need and spread it out over 160 vertical feet. And that's different than the voids law. This is about lateral spacing, and this is what the developer's fighting for, because that's where the value is. And there's a matter of how long you can hold a property, what that costs, and those are decisions beyond my pay grade.
How long you can hold, that's interesting. Okay.
And then the last thing I just want to point out, because you said other land use issues, there's a proposal coming forward called zoning for accessibility, which is a great idea. President Bush, the first, signed ADA into law in 1990, and the MTA has been slow to adopt these changes. The issue is it's the earliest, maybe August 18th. The date hasn't been formally set. It might be the first hearing in September. There's going to be a vote on how to adopt this. And Gail Brewer held a great hearing where they did a conditional approval with a lot of exceptions and amendments to why they would approve this. But it essentially would allow anyone who does a transit improvement within 500 feet of a station, even if there's already accessibility things such as 66th Street, which already has an elevator, the neighboring properties could have an additional up to 20% floor area and 25% height. Which is, we're literally writing a loophole into the zoning right now. The problem that we have as Landmark West, just in terms of considering this, we're not against people getting around the city, or we want to support people with mobility issues, is that these improvements don't have to happen on the Upper West Side. By and large, the Upper East and Upper West Side are bearing the brunt of the additional bulk. And these can support the MTA on Long Island through the Long Island Railroad, the MTA in Dutchess County, in other far off places outside the city limits. So this is just something people should be looking at and considering. We're going to be writing a statement on it in support, but with conditions as well, because we do feel everybody has a right to get around the city. But this is just something everybody should be looking out for, because these are the prime areas that are mapped. Every station, for example, along the 2nd Avenue subway, which is fully accessible, is mapped for these improvements as well. And it's accessibility improvements. So that could be signage, this could be audible things, this could be rumble tiles on the strip at the edge of the platform. So there's a lot of ways to define this, and it's left very open of who decides how to grant the amount of bonus for this and what that translates to. So just something for everybody to think about.
Thank you for that. Was that the last point you wanted to make?
I think those are the 3 major land use items affecting the footprint of this block association.
We appreciate that. Thank you. And I think some of this dovetails nicely to our, I'd like to bring on our next guest, Community Board 7 Chair Stephen Brown, who has been chairing a lot of meetings where a lot of this stuff has been coming up. So Stephen, welcome. And thank you so much for joining us. And we'd love to hear how these last months of your chairmanship have been. And I know you're in a very unique time right now because of the executive order that's thrown I guess a wrench into how you do proceedings. So we'd love to hear from you.
Great, and Chris, I'm an honor to finally join one of your meetings because you are quite the supporter of our endeavors as well. So happy to be here, and happy to hear sort of CB7 named a couple times already in some of those. So I won't repeat those. But in general, it is an interesting time. I will give an update. We have decided, we had a board meeting last week, and because of a combination of logistical challenges in terms of getting space and feeling confident that we could actually set it up, particularly for the full board, and our full board would have been Tuesday. Logistical challenges, and I think a lot of the board members are still concerned about health concerns. We postponed our July meetings. So the next kind of full time we'll be meeting is in September. We'll continue to conduct business. I'm available for business. I have many meetings, but I think that's sort of where we're at, and we eagerly await some of our elected officials to help us out, to perhaps bring Zoom possibilities, particularly for the summer if possible. I know our good friend Brad has a bill in front, and if that's something that could be pushed forward with the help of Linda and the other state officials on the call, that would be wonderful. With that, maybe I'll just give a little bit of summary of sort of the things that are relevant to the community board as well as your area. And some of them are duplicitous, so I'll be brief. Landmark West told you a bit about our work. We are, as everyone is, a little concerned about the ABC building, so I think we've been proactive. We want to make sure that's done correctly. And we've been active in the space and will continue to do so. Again, as Gail mentioned, I think school, although school is a concern, we've got about 60 days to kind of see how things happened. Last year's school start, by any measure, was not a good start, and it was a challenging year. And I echo Gail's concerns about the way things could be rolled out. The biggest challenge last year was timing. So literally some direction was being given in September 14th on a September 21st rollout. So we have put a resolution together in which I'm very happy that Assemblyperson Rosenthal has been helping us out, and her Chief of Staff, Erica, in terms of pushing to make sure that they are getting their timing together earlier, we're getting direction earlier, that they're including principals and other ones. It was a very poor rollout, and let's hope we can learn from our mistakes. So obviously that affects all of our areas and your area as well. So we're hoping that there is a better rollout, and we're going to continue on with that. I did want to mention the concerns that were brought up by the police as well as our officials. We're concerned as well. We passed a resolution regarding e-bikes. We thought could be a start of a conversation that perhaps it was time to take a step back and reset. That, in my opinion, I know CB7 has been diligent and put more bike lanes and tried to push alternative transportation, I think, prolifically. But I think I get the sense, we get a sense that this could be a timing where we may have to take a step back and look around and say, there's a lot of stuff going on in these streets. We push this forward, and perhaps it's time to reset that. So we have a resolution that came out of our transportation. It'll now be up for September. We think it's in line with all of the other conversations that we have, and we look forward to hopefully a reset. But we have to feel safe in our streets, and I do think a lot of people don't feel safe. And then the last thing is we'll continue to do and support you as much as we can locally. I know, Chris, we got involved in that crane situation that you guys had. That was a concern. I hope that our diligent, and not myself, but our whole board was helpful, but we want to continue to support. And I think that we've been really focused on hearing and doing, just improving our outreach to the community. Not that I'm speaking of the past, but talking about the future. We do have a new district manager. Her name is Michelle Booker. We're extremely excited. One of the things that we spoke about that we feel we want to lead in Manhattan in terms of being able to reach out and be responsive to our constituents. My motto is that we have to speak to all of them. They may not always like everything we have to say, but we owe a conversation, and I think that we're trying to take that. So that's my summary, and certainly open to any other questions. But again, I thank you for putting this together, and I thank you personally for all your support that you always do for the community.
Thank you, Stephen. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, and I'll be saying it a few more times, we're now focused on having our sidewalk and lanes restored because the Excel site, is dormant, and we still have block sidewalks and a lane of 65th Street. It feels like it falls in the category of there should be a law. If a developer stops doing work, we should be able to restore the site so people can use the sidewalks and streets as intended. And there's also folks, just for your attention, that are concerned because now we have about 2 years of construction equipment that's been sitting on a site that some folks with engineering backgrounds that live in the neighborhood and look down on the site say, there's erosion happening, and what issues will there be when they resume construction and use those materials on a site that has been left eroding for years. Anyway, I'll be repeating that later as well. So, but just
understood, and just happy to jump on a line and think of ideas and how we can support. And again, I think we share the concerns about issues such as that, and we'd be happy to engage with you.
Thank you so much. And so with that, I'd like to pivot to Assemblymember Gottfried, who lives nearby and has been a great advocate for our community. So Assemblymember Gottfried, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening. So a few things. One, I don't know if Gail is still on the line or has anyone still in the meeting, but I am just so delighted to have her coming back as our council member. It's just always wonderful to see people who have such a long-standing commitment to the community and to public service. And Gail is a real star in all of that. We're very lucky to have her. Where it looks like Eric Adams is going to be our mayor. I don't think he carried this part of town. So we've got a lot to learn about him and vice versa. One thing I personally am happy about him is that he is a vegan. I don't know if he's our first vegan mayor, but it's got to be a good sign. A few issues. I have a bill in Albany that is known as Sammy's Law. Senator Hoylman and I are the sponsors of it. What it does is New York City now has authority to lower the speed limit at any particular point in the city down to 25 miles per hour. This would empower the city to move it down to 20 miles per hour. Why does that make a difference? Well, Isaac Newton taught us, well, not directly, he was there even before I was elected, that a car going 25 miles an hour hits you with more than 150% of the force of a car going 20 miles an hour, which means you're a lot more likely to be killed by the 25 mile an hour car than a 20 mile an hour car. And we're going to continue to be pressing to get that bill passed. Unfortunately, people whose main focus is driving their cars are a fairly strong force in the legislature. So we're going to need to get a lot of vocal support on that issue. We've talked about some discussion this evening about the roaring motorcycles and ATVs and cars that roar up and down our avenues without anything resembling a muffler. They seem to have great fun doing that. It's dangerous. It's enormously annoying. And I don't know if there's anyone still in the meeting from the precinct or from Board 7. But I think it's important that over the next, I don't know, few weeks, we ought to get a meeting together, and there may be other community boards in Manhattan. I know Board 4 in Hell's Kitchen would be interested to sit down with the police and work out what can be done about this. I can't believe there's no way to protect us from this kind of menace. I guess the last thing I want to mention, we've talked a lot about the ABC site. You know, I've been working in the neighborhood long enough that I was involved as a, you know, neighborhood block activist back in 69, 70, when the Lincoln Square Special District was drafted and enacted. It represents an enormous amount of community input, and our community would be very different, and not in a good way, if that had not been achieved half a century ago. And I think adding the ABC site to the Lincoln Square District is a really terrific move. And on that and so many other issues, you know, listening to Landmark West's presentation, we are so lucky to have them in our community and fighting for our community. Last thing I want to say is just to remind people, easiest way to communicate with me is by email, and my email address is my last name, Gottfried R, at nyassembly.gov, Gottfried R at nyassembly.gov. If you forget it, go to the New York State Assembly website. You can find us all listed. We work a lot together, and let's keep doing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Assembly Member, and hi, Brees. Thanks for joining as well. And we look forward to continuing our collaboration. And with that, I'd like to now throw it to our the representatives of our local bid. We have with us Monica Blum, Ralph Memley, and Philip Gordon from the Lincoln Square Business Improvement District. I think it'd be interesting to hear how this last year has been for them. Hello and welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I can't believe I'm getting these spam calls on my landline, but thank you very much for having us. I always bring my team along for backup in case I don't remember everything and don't have the numbers right. But it's great to be here with everyone, and we're thrilled as well that Gail is going to remain on our board. And you know, we're really looking forward to having her continue. A couple of things I guess I want to report about. Number one, we've increased our hours of cleaning. We're back up to having 13 people out cleaning, 520 hours, which is close to what we had, not quite, but pre-pandemic, because the streets are getting dirtier and pedestrian counts are going up. There's still pedestrian counts, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're still down 66% over 2019. So we have a long way to go. And our garbage bag usage is still down. And that's one of the ways we would measure litter. But I have to say, we're back in the office, not 5 days a week, but we're back. And I went absolutely nuts today when I saw litter all over the place. I was calling Ralph and Phil at 5 o'clock because I couldn't find anybody, no cleaners. So I'm glad we're back. I think it's really important that we are able to watch what's going on in the district. Our vacancy rate is not great, but it's better than many districts. Right now, it's 13.9%. It'll probably go up when Banana Republic closes in a few weeks, but there have been, you know, every week there's something new opening, and it's encouraging to see that either reopening Old John's Diner. I've been trying to get an egg cream there, but every time I go, it doesn't work. And in the shops at Columbus Circle, there are a couple of new stores. So, you know, we're optimistic. They're definitely, we're going in the right direction. But I think it's going to be, unfortunately, a slow a slow process. We're having trouble. We still are understaffed in public safety. We pay a very good starting wage. It's now $17 an hour. But we've been interviewing, somebody starts and then they're not used to walking the district and they can't sit down. They have to be outside all the time. So, we're interviewing constantly and somebody's got their not on mute. But so that's unfortunate that we don't have the full complement of 10, but we're hopeful. Yeah. We did interview we're hoping to start a couple of people in the next week or so. The biggest thing I want to report on is that, the bids work closely together. There's 76 of us. And for many, many months, we were asking, in the height of the pandemic, we were asking that there be someone designated at City Hall to hear all the issues that we're dealing with, because in many cases, they're similar and we were not getting any response at all. So the good news is the mayor appointed retired Chief Terry Monahan. And the better news is that the 76 bids were divided up by patrol borough. And if the patrol borough was really large, then they were divided into two groups. We work with 5 other bids in patrol borough Manhattan North. And we have had several very successful large meetings with Chief Monahan, and every single agency in the city of New York, someone is designated to attend these and to follow up on all of our issues. So it's been really great. We've had some measure of success. The biggest one, the most recent one that I'm pleased about is that we've had a lot of people sleeping in ATM vestibules. And it's scary. I mean, we had an incident last week, and this is really what, made me raise this issue even more with Monahan last week. But people sleep in these bank vestibules. People let them in, and it's dangerous. And it was an alleged assault early in the morning. He went into one and tried to make a deposit, and this guy was aggressive. He was running around with one of my chairs from the park. So of course I went nuts and said, give me back my chair. But there was no clear position. What are we supposed to do if someone is sleeping in an ATM? Do you call 911 or do you call 311? Homeless outreach will not go into an ATM. They just will not. So we did get clarity that it is trespassing if someone is in an ATM. So when we call it in, we call 911. If someone is sleeping on a doorstep in front of a business, that is a 311 call and homeless outreach will come. Unless you're the property owner. And if the property owner calls, says, there's somebody sleeping in front of my business, I think that qualifies as trespassing because they need a complainant. So we've raised many issues with Monahan, and we're lucky. We have a great relationship with other city agencies, and didn't need him to sort of yell at city agencies to pay attention to our concerns. But some of the smaller bids and bids in the other boroughs didn't have that direct line of communication. Beyond that, as I said, my staff is back, and we will increase the number of days. Ralph, did I forget anything? I'm sure I did, because
I thought it was a good report. I mean, unfortunately, there's still a handful of businesses that are temporarily closed.
Right.
We hope they'll be reopening soon.
Well, we have these large ones that are difficult to fill, which I think is the biggest challenge. But I think our property owners, they don't want vacant stores, so they are eager to work with potential tenants, and we'll see what happens. But we're getting new businesses.
And can you share with?
And continuing our beautification efforts. That was the
of course, yes. Yeah. Right.
And can you share with us your event plans for the balance of the year?
So we're not doing, we cannot do Winter's Eve. We just can't, we don't have the, number one, it's a very expensive event to put on. And, you know, because we're so space challenged, I can't putting up a stage at Dante Park is prohibitive. Same at Tucker. So we are hoping to do, first of all, we'll do our holiday, our new Tumbling Brights. We will double that so that there'll be more of these creative figures out there. And we hope to do a holiday stroll. I also don't think the restaurants have the bandwidth, and I don't think they will in December, to come out and sell food under tents. We just, you know, it's a huge undertaking for them. Some make money, but many do it because they want to give back to the community. So we're talking about a holiday stroll. I sort of envision a 2-day. The other thing is we always did it Monday night after Thanksgiving, which was really challenging for everybody. So we're hoping to do some sort of holiday stroll on a weekend that we would promote. So sort of the way we did Fashion Week years ago, which was very successful. I put out great posters and brochures, but let the restaurants sell whatever they want from in front of their spaces. And then maybe we'd have some really creative street, you know, dance street, but not stages. I'm not going to have, you know, I loved having whatever her name was. What was her name, Ralph? I can't remember. my friend from
Ronnie Spector.
Ronnie Spector. But you know, those artists cost so much money. It's just, and I won't be able to raise it. I know it. So I think that's really it. Phil keeps track of all the crime numbers like you do. And I think we work very closely with our precinct, and we actually put together, the one other thing I will mention that I think has been great. We've always had an email list of security directors and property managers, but prior to the Derek Chauvin decision, there was some concern that there might be, you know, some riots or whatever, demonstrations. And so we put together our email list. We got everybody's permission and we shared it with the precinct. And so now there's a really good line of communication between the precinct and all the people and there are a lot of people in our district. It's a long list of security directors and property managers who can be contacted if there's an issue, if there's concern, if there's, you know, car theft or whatever it is. So we communicate with them regularly now, which has been great, I think.
A much better way than trying to monitor social media for what's going on.
Forget it. Well, I can't do that. So I'm too old for social media. I don't like it.
Yes, thank you. I should add that this newly formed Upper West Side Coalition of Block Associations, we met with Captain Zuber and he mentioned to us this email tree that, and the block associations are going to do something similar as a way of communicating and in some ways sharing information faster and stopping maybe some misinformation that begins to build up when information is not being shared. So
well, we had that with our children, and we had phone trees, you know. So it's sort of the same thing. It's just making sure that everyone is informed and on the same page as to what's happening. I think, and the other thing is Monahan also told us on these ATVs that, you know, they're going to the garages to catch them. So everybody's been making us think about that. It's really a shame.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Monica, Ralph, and Phil for joining us. And I know that Assembly Member Rosenthal has another meeting. So if we can go to Assembly Member Rosenthal next. Hello and welcome.
Why, thank you. I have been here from the beginning.
I know.
So I will touch upon something, hey Holly, that we talked about earlier, and that's the ATVs. And so I've been communicating with the city and writing letters, etc., to them. So the information I found out was that since April 20th, the NYPD has picked up 450 ATVs and dirt bikes. 174 in the Bronx, 110 Manhattan North, and I don't have the rest of the breakdown. So 450 sounds a lot, but we know it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. I have noticed it seems a little more quiet these days, but that's probably because they're getting new vehicles to come in. It's really horrible. It's all hours of the day and night. I know you all hear it. I'm going to be speaking further with the NYPD about this. And I think what I mentioned earlier, that we need to do a community-wide kind of forum, I think is really called for at this time. I think we should just decide like when we do it, because are people out of town and now or in August, or maybe we can have a meeting, Chris, of the electeds and CB7 and see when we think we should do it. But I think it's important to do that and to do the pedestrian and the traffic rules and all of that in like a neighborhood-wide Zoom, because this is like a common denominator. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're homeless, or if you live in opulent circumstances. Everybody's kind of taken aback by all the mayhem in the street, as I call it. And Chris was at a press conference that Senator Hoylman and I had to announce our legislation, which was introduced in response to the death of the actress at 64th and Amsterdam, who was hit by an e-scooter. And right now, the penalties for fleeing such an accident are, one is a violation for fleeing if you think there's physical harm. Another is a low misdemeanor if you think there's great physical harm and you just flee. And so we've upped those penalties in this bill to be commensurate with what a vehicle driver would be charged with. And so that's one step we can take, but I think there has to be a much more coordinated citywide effort, actually. The ATVs are coming in from somewhere, so we have to head them off at the pass as well. So this is something that is very, very concerning to everyone. Congestion pricing, which we voted on in the legislature some years ago. We were supposed to start having hearings and discussions across the city. Donald Trump decided he didn't want to move on it because New York wanted it. So why help the city where you've made millions? And so now it's moving again. There will be an environmental assessment. So that's a shorter, less comprehensive process. And it won't start for months because there has to first be outreach. In fact, the agencies charged with doing this environmental assessment, which include like the MTA and DOT and various other agencies, have to do outreach to Connecticut, New Jersey, Native American tribes and places of residence. So that's going to take a long time, and it'll be months before we have our first actual community meeting where people can give input.
So can I just ask you about that while you're on congestion pricing? How should the community look at this? Because it's been out there for a long time, but of course it's been off the radar, but now we know it's back. How should we look at this, and how should we imagine participating in the upcoming meetings?
Right. Well, I did speak to the MTA yesterday, which is, I guess, the lead agency. They really are just ramping up. They don't have plans yet for, when they will have the meeting, probably not till close to the end of the year. So as I get more information, I can distribute it. But, it was my understanding when we passed this into law that there would be opportunities for communities like the ones who live right around 60th Street, right here, to have a say and perhaps see if there's any, every community wants a pass, right? And what we've done is if you make 60,000 or less, you won't have to pay in and out. But what about, maybe that should go up a little bit because there's been some inflation since we passed that. Is 60th the right boundary? I don't think we're going to change it very drastically, if at all. But certainly the neighborhood needs to have input since we're the ones most affected by this. So I'll keep you apprised, but it's not going to be for months.
On the boundaries, the test pits have been dug and the stanchions are in at some locations.
Yes.
So that's not going to change.
No, it's not going to change. But in terms of exemptions for people who live right there and they park right across, and just little accommodations we can try to see, because I've heard complaints, not so much now, but when we passed it, about people who just live at the border and they don't think it's fair. I agree, but you have to draw a line somewhere, but perhaps, we can see. I mean, we really do need to have congestion pricing. Traffic is back to not pre-COVID, but it's pretty bad out there in at some times of the day and evening. So that's that. I spoke about the bill with Brad and I, and I have one of the bills in the package about reform of traffic rules, and mine is about the rule of two, and about people who are convicted of certain violations of law are going to have to go back and take training and other ways, and also future drivers will have to learn about certain rules about speeding, etc. Let's see what else. Yes, mine is what's it called? It's called the Crash Victims' Rights and Safety Act. It's the Dangerous Driving Act, it's called, which incorporates reckless driving and vehicular violence training into pre-licensing courses for people obtaining their driver's licenses. Mechanical voids, which Holly, I see you out there. Are you outside or just have a nice backdrop? Hopefully, I see Senator Jackson on. We will get moving on this in the next session. Really, with the new administration in City Hall, we have to see what their attitude is toward these kinds of zoning fixes. I have no prognostication about where Mayor Adams will sit with these kinds of appeals from neighborhoods that are inundated with overdevelopment, inappropriate development. I have no idea. I mean, maybe you can judge based on his performance as borough president, but maybe not. When someone enters a big office like this with a lot of expectations, a person can really rise to the occasion. Is that right, Senator Jackson? I see you smiling. We hope so. We need that to be so. And but that doesn't mean that we're not going to keep fighting on this and other things around zoning that we in the state can do. There are some people who are hesitant to mess with local zoning on certain things, like with the Honda bill, the hotel bill, where there's $100 million in the budget, and we passed a law thereafter in the last days of session about hotels being converted to housing, affordable housing, half of which would be for homeless individuals. And so some people were upset about the zoning, like would that law override local zoning? So that's part of the mix in Albany, but I think the fact that the assembly is more progressive, has more progressive members, as in more local control of things than we had in the past, perhaps will, help us. This was a very difficult session in terms of all of us being on Zoom and not being there and not being able to part the water so we could get into some very local stuff because of the huge amount of other issues we have to deal with. But I'm of course, committed as ever to that. And that's about it. As Assemblymember Gottfried said, you know where to find me. I'm in my office right now. But my cell and anything else you wish to discuss with me or with Erica, we're always at your service. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And
thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you.
And let's take this opportunity to go to Senator Jackson, who I works closely with the assembly member and has probably good reason to be happy because I think our schools are finally fully funded, at least for a year or so. Welcome, Senator Jackson.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and your summer's going okay. I just got back from running in Central Park. I'm training with my brother-in-law, who's a visually impaired individual. I plan on running with him in the marathon as one of his guides. He is running in honor of his sister, my sister-in-law, who died in Tanzania, where they're from, in October. So I'm committed to running the marathon with him as one of his guides. One thing I do know, he doesn't run as fast as I do, so that's a good thing. Because I've run 3 New York City marathons, 2007, 8, and 9, but I haven't run one since 2009. So, but we're getting in shape. But I definitely wanted to come in more so in order to listen to the issues and concerns. And I do know, I've said in different community boards, my #1 issue is the safety and security of the people that I represent. And I said it then and I say it now, because if we're not safe in our communities, wherever we live, whether it's 64th or 67th Street or up in Washington Heights where I live at, or anywhere else, we're in trouble. And obviously, as you know, Eric Adams basically used that banner, especially coming down the Home Pike. And safety and security is a primary issue for everyone. It doesn't matter if you ride the subway. Many people that ride the subways have told me that they're not riding the subways anymore, they're taking the bus because they feel safer on buses. But I think that we have to work together in order to make our city a safe place where everyone can venture out during the day or in the evening and enjoy themselves with their family or in the park. And their safety and security is not being threatened on. So that's primary. Obviously, you know my involvement in education, and I'm very pleased that that this year's budget basically put forward the foundation aid money that our kids were entitled to, about $4.2 billion over the next 3 years. But as you know, what happened in 2007, you never know what's happening. Is it guaranteed? They say it's guaranteed, but it's not guaranteed. You've heard it until we actually get it. And so we have to be vigilant and make sure that the money is there so that all of the resources that our children have will give them the best education that they can. And obviously with all of the money from the federal government, it should be a no-brainer as far as ensuring that there's nurses in schools, there's social workers and psychologists to deal with the whole issue of being in the pandemic for over a year and a half. And obviously the summer program has already started. I was invited to go out to Brooklyn where the mayor was at the opening, but I declined that. There are many people that don't have placements as of yet, and they say they're supposed to have it, but they don't have it. One thing is what you say, and another thing is what you do. And I want to be able to make sure that what we say is what we're doing, and that's the most important thing. So I don't have anything specific that I want to communicate with you, but I say this to you that my staff is looking at all of the bills that are out there that impact us and our safety and security and the issues of education and affordable housing, making sure that the rent relief program, we're processing people's applications so that no one will be able to lose their home. And that's primary. And so I am here to work with my colleagues, both in the Senate and the Assembly. And sometimes you have to stand up by yourself. One of the things I said to my staff, I wanted them to prepare my statement on approving the budget, then another draft of me voting no against the budget. Because if in fact the foundation aid money wasn't there, I was not going to vote yes. I think the leader and I had a very frank conversations, and she knew how important that was to our children. And what I say to you also, and here's a tidbit of it, our leader, Andrew Stewart Cousins, represents part of Yonkers. And Yonkers is part of the Big Five. The Big Fives are the major school districts in the entire state. And Shelley Mayer, who was a state assembly member, that's now a senator, and she chairs education. So all of that was as a result of the majority leader wanting her and giving her the position of chair of education committee. And both of them represent the city of Yonkers. And city of Yonkers is in an education debt every single year to the tone of 25 to $30 million. And you know one thing? They make sure that Yonkers get the money. And so we have to make sure that the rest of the state, New York City, Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, and I tell my colleagues upstate that are part of the rural districts, we have to make sure that they get the money that they're entitled to also. So it's not about, New York City versus upstate. It's about all of us together. And that's the approach that I take with my colleagues in dealing with the budget and dealing with major issues that impact the conditions of the people that we represent. With that, I would like to stop, Chris, and I'm going to stay on and listen to what everyone has to say. And obviously, I thought one of my staff members are here, but I'm not sure. But I'm not going to. I'll be glad to answer any questions that I may have if you have.
Thank you, Senator Jackson, and particularly for your advocacy for all of our kids. And with that, I want to welcome Council Member Helen Rosenthal, and first thank her for, as we tip towards the end of the year, thank her for her years of advocacy as our City Council member, and would love to hear what you think we should be focused on and where you see us going. And thank you so much for joining us.
Chris, I love your hair long. Robert, you look good with long hair too. Put it in a pony. It is so great to see everyone. Steve, I get to see you a lot. You're doing a great job with the community board. Really great job. Thank you for your service. Robert, I never get to see you. We promised me with all these witnesses, we'll have breakfast together. You can go off mute and say it.
I promise.
Love Robert Jackson. So anyway, sorry. It's great to see everyone. Sorry, I'm late. We had a housing clinic tonight. As you know, the federal government has given the state $2 billion to give out throughout the state to help stave off evictions. It covers at least a year, possibly more, of back rent. And, there's a process to apply, but it will be critical for so many renters to get this money and to stay in their homes. So we were just talking about that. And, Robert, you were just talking about state aid. I mean, what a joyous moment, all your work for all those years. And this is it, and you're in the state Senate to see it come true. I so admire you for just sticking with it and fighting to get us to this point. From my perspective, so now, and for the schools where we overlap, Senator, perhaps we can do this work together. But I'm reaching out to all the principals in the district just to make sure, as they review the budgets they get from central office, is it really covering them 100%? And there are still little tricks that the city and the state play with that money. And so, we have to be vigilant. It's not as easy as saying when schools are fully funded on to next, because the city plays little tricks with the money. And in fact, principals are not getting 100% of what they should get. And, we have to stay vigilant to this. The city council also advocated for the city to use its federal stimulus money to pay for a social worker in every school, to pay for, social, emotional caseworkers for students as they come back, because of course, so many students have had to live with real trauma over the past 18 years. And I won't go into too many details because for all of you who get my email, we in the last email detailed all the funding that I think is incredibly important that we got, that the city council advocated for, and the mayor did include in the city's budget for both our district and for the city. Really excited about some of the parks money to finally fix the 78th Street ramp. No, 78th Street stairs, 105th Street ramp, and the dinosaur playground, things that have been wanting resources for a long time. Interestingly for me, I'm now the chair of the committee, the subcommittee on capital. And what I've learned in this role is that you can say you have all the capital in the world and all this money in your budget, but if you don't spend it, it's not worth a hill of beans. So I'm very focused in my last 5 months on making sure the city is spending all of this capital money that they have dedicated to our parks, our schools. Interestingly, little fun facts to know and share with your government public servant friends. I learned that NYCHA, public housing, they receive money from the state, from the federal government, and from the city. There are rules attached to the federal money that make it so that if NYCHA does not spend the money within 2 years, they lose the money. So NYCHA spends that's NYCHA's priority. So they spend about 70% of the federal funds they get. The city does not have that parameter. And so NYCHA spends 5% of the money that council members put in the budget for their developments and whatever the city is putting in, and this is for doors and, entryways and plumbing. It's just a disgrace. And, anyway, I could go down the rabbit hole of the budget.
Can I just ask you a question? How are we supposed? Yeah. You're saying that of the money allocated from the city to NYCHA, they're only spending 5% of it?
Yes.
That's incredible. Okay.
I was dumbfounded when Greg Russ said that. I was dumbfounded. And we're going to have a hearing on it. I learned this information in our usual budget hearings that we have at the end of a fiscal year. And I mean, the guy makes $420,000 a year and he can't spend the capital money he gets from the city. I really think it's outrageous. Yeah, I hope the next administration does a better job of it than this guy has done. We should be getting lots of money for sanitation now. They're going back to full litter basket pickup. And so our streets should be cleaner. I'm not sure whether or not they're going to street sweeping of 2 days a week. That was always a question because with COVID, and people maybe not moving their cars or it being more complicated, the city now has street sweeping only once a week. If you're interested in any of these topics, I'm always happy to talk more about them. And we passed, I think, some good laws to help try to help our small businesses and also the bike delivery guys. Stephen at CB7 had a terrific hearing this month or last month about why the delivery guys are in the situation they're in. And the thing that really jumped out at me from that meeting was someone on the community board, just because he's an amazing person, decided to see what it was like to be a delivery guy for a day for DoorDash. And he followed all of the rules. He stopped at red lights. He stayed in the bike lanes. He never went the wrong way on the bike lanes. And he never got a job because he couldn't get to the restaurant fast enough in order to be the guy who picks up the order to deliver to somebody. What a takeaway, I mean, that finding, it just stops me in my tracks, every time I see a bike delivery guy now going the wrong way, I feel a little more empathy than I think I did before. We really have to fix this situation. I think the way the delivery people are treated is terrible. So the city council has some stuff on this, and it's a complicated issue, of course.
Does it suggest that there needs to be a multifaceted approach to all these issues that we talk about with regards to bike lanes and scooters and delivery?
Thank you, Chris. Yes. And I would add to that we have to look at ourselves. We have to look inward a little bit as we complain, right? I mean, these guys are trying to get food to people who probably won't tip them very much.
It's hard if you're wanting everything hot, fast, and cheap. It's hard then to complain about how people are riding on the streets, for sure.
Exactly, and similarly with Amazon. Everyone's complaining about our small businesses closing and ordering from Amazon every day. So the world's changing, and I think we are going to have to take a long, hard look at not just systems, but our own behavior. That's my personal point of view. So if there are, I have a lot of gratitude for this community. I'm not gone yet, Chris. You have me until December 31st. And if people have questions, comments, of course, as always, reach out to my office. You can reach me, Helen at helenrosenthal.com, or call my office. And, I'm eager to serve until the last possible minute. But the truth of the matter is you have Gail Brewer coming in, so she will pick up right where we left off.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the council member?
I had a comment, which is, Helen, I'd love to talk about that NYCHA issue. I think we've got something on the books in a couple of weeks that's super relative. And then, to Helen's point and Chris's point, it is this issue about, delivery workers and bikes and safety. It's complex because when you isolate them, everything makes sense. You put them together, it's complicated. And probably the easiest way to fix it is if we can get a couple really large digital companies to make some adjustments, which is the harder thing to do. But if they would pay a little bit more and give a little bit more, maybe everything would make sense, which is probably the hardest thing. And hopefully that's what Helen's talking about and her other elected officials on. But I think spreading the wealth a little bit in terms of the money. I don't know if people know, one of the top 3 highest paid executives in last year was the DoorDash CEO. So it was quite high. Yeah, he, because of stock and going public. So I'll share it with you. It's a fact. But I will say something positive. I know Helen spoke of the meeting that we had, and thank you, but I'm actually working with Helen's staff, which is Cindy and Rita, and we're trying to put together an event that brings the challenges around safety, but also bring the delivery people and the union representing them. And we're trying to do an event just to get everyone together, which has really never happened. And maybe that could just be the start of a conversation that's beyond pointing the finger. And I'll continue to work with them, but her staff's been great. And I think Helen's leadership has been wonderful. So we have started that conversation. It came after that meeting. And I think my hopes is in the fall that we could start to, but I do think it's complex because when you isolate each issue, each one feels unique, you put them all together, it's very complex and we've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We have Tevin Williams from Brad Hoylman's office. He's been with us this entire time. Tevin, thank you. Do you want to say a few words about, I know the senator had to jump off, but do you want to say a few words about what's going on in the office there?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, thank you again for the invitation, Chris, and thank you all again tonight for coming. It's an honor to be here with the 6467 Block Association meeting. I just wanted to point out just a few things. As Chris mentioned, the senator had to jump off due to childcare duties tonight, so he could not be able to attend, but I will say just a few words in his name. So as Assemblymember Rosenthal mentioned, on June 16th, the senator and the assembly member hosted a press conference for Senate Bill 7212 and also Assembly Bill 8128 about bringing the penalties for a hit and run on an electric scooter to the same as a vehicular type of crash. Lisa Baines was a very respected actress that passed away due to an electric scooter accident and hit and run. And we would like to see that reflected in our laws and bring them up to date. Just a few quick things on the senator's Albany efforts. When it comes to some of his bills that passed, but we're still waiting to see what happens, Senate Bill 5325, which would require utility corporations and municipalities to allow customers to use their preferred names and pronouns, has actually passed both the Assembly and the Senate, and we are waiting for the governor to sign this bill into law. This will require utility companies to use their customers' preferred names and pronouns upon request, which is a small but meaningful step in New York that will become a safer state for the transgender and non-binary individuals that live and work in New York State. Senate Bill 99-1C, which directs the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to conduct a legal review of the redesignation of the Donald J. Trump State Park. This has obviously been a huge issue in our state. Even our park system needs to reflect the values of the history of being welcoming and embracing to all people. The Donald J. Trump Park, for these reasons, should be renamed. Taking this action will rename the park and it will ensure the park provides recreational and also educational opportunities for all New Yorkers. And then last, but two more things, I'll let the meeting continue. On June 24th, the governor signed Senator Hoylman's 4402B bill, the Gender Recognition Act. This bill updates the current law to remove excess discriminatory burdens placed on the petitioning for change in sex designation for all state level paperwork. He's very thankful to have now updated our laws to pave the way to a future of acceptance, unity, respect, equality, and diversity. And last but not least, the senator, as I put in the chat earlier, there's been a comment from our awesome chair on CB7, Stephen Brown, about our hybrid open public meetings law that the senator has introduced, which is Senate Bill 7261, which would allow public bodies to meet remote or hybrid beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. We all know that our community boards have been struggling to find locations since the executive order was repealed just this past week, and we would like to see some type of action on this. The senator has introduced a bill and we're looking to move this through the Senate quickly and the Assembly and build some coalition. We're looking to move this quickly. We will stay tuned on this. This is about 2 weeks ago that he introduced it, but we will stay tuned with everyone on this call. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I am the CB7 community liaison, so y'all are all of my friends here, and please feel free to reach out via email. I'll put my email in the chat or my work cell phone number. Thank you again, Chris, and thank you, everyone.
Chris,
Thank
I
you.
would add that I'm equally enthusiastic about Tevin. We've been working together, and he's been great to work with, super proactive, and a great partner of ours. So I speak enthusiastically of him as well.
Thank you so much, Tevin, and please extend our thanks to the senator and the entire staff. We appreciate his advocacy.
Absolutely.
And I think, have we talked to everybody? I think we have. We have the business section of the Block Association meeting now, which is going to go super fast. I mean, you all can stay on, but and any members, please do. So the president's report, I'll make it very brief, and then we'll do a treasurer's report, and we're going to do an election on Zoom for our board. So basically, in the last year, we facilitated the 20th precinct's community event last July when they started to reopen communication again with the community. They reached out to us, and we hosted an event at the Boat Basin. It was a bit of a last minute meeting, but we were, you know, happy to help bring the community together to speak directly with the precinct. We had also this year, as we all went to Zoom, we had a Department of Homeland Security cybersecurity expert come and was a guest speaker to our community about how to have safe Zoom calls. We established, you know, last year as the pandemic, you know, closed us down, we created this 64th through 70th Streets Alliance Pandemic Info Hub, which we've continued to maintain. And then last summer, as communication was key with both the pandemic and other issues in the community, a number of block associations came together, us included, to create a coalition, the Upper West Side Coalition of Block Associations and community groups. And our block association played a role in that. In fact, James Berry, who's one of our board members and does a lot of pro bono legal work for nonprofits, helped with the bylaws and the structuring of that organization. And we're grateful to James's work for our block association and for the community in general. And we've increased the frequency of our newsletters. We've been sending them out weekly, which I'm sure everybody will be happy to hear that we're going to send them out less frequently now that we've reopened. So you'll start seeing fewer of those newsletters in the weeks to come. Holly, do you want to talk about the Treasury?
Yes, I have a little statement, and then I'll give the official Treasury step. As treasurer, first, I'd like to thank all of our members and especially our dues-paying members. And I'd like to thank all of the community leaders for attending our meeting. It's nice to have seen so many familiar faces. And your board consists of volunteers, Chris Giordano, James Berry, and myself. And I'd like to give special thanks to Chris Giordano, our president, for his tireless efforts on behalf of the Block Association and our community. During the past year, when we all had to face an unprecedented crisis and confront the impact of COVID on our lives and our community, one of the many things Chris accomplished through work with our neighboring block associations was an alliance of the Lincoln Square Block Association. He created the West 64th through 67th Street COVID Hub. In addition to safety and government information, it provides lists of businesses where you may shop and enjoy dining and takeaway and delivery service, as well as volunteer assistance in the community. This is in addition to his weekly updates about our blocks. I'm sure he's relieved he won't be doing it every week. And these provided really important information about our schools, crime, construction, what's open, and where to get vaccines and testings. So I just want to say thank you, Chris. I think everybody appreciates everything that you did, and it was just really amazing the way you stepped up. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
And so now I will summarize our financial information. Because we didn't have a 2020 meeting, I'll be providing information for both 2020 and 2021. Our revenue consists of contributions from our members. Our cash balance as of June 30th is about $3,000. Our revenue for 2020 was $1,950. Our expenses for 2020 were $515 for insurance. Our revenue through June 30th of the current year was $800. We anticipate expenses for insurance and Upper West Side Coalition membership. We expect additional annual dues to be received prior to the end of the calendar year. As a reminder, dues are $25 and cover the calendar year. And we greatly appreciate the additional funds that some of our members and foundations have contributed. Dues paying members, let me know if you'd like a copy of our financial information. Thank you. Unless there are any questions, that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Holly. And yeah, so basically we're asking to do a vote to re-up the current board, which is Holly, James, and myself. So I think our bylaws allow the assembled voting members to vote. And I don't think I need to be so, I think it's probably more complicated to post one of those Zoom polls. Maybe I just unmute everybody and do we just do this by acclamation or something like that? Robert, you know about this
That
stuff
works,
better than
Chris.
I do.
That works.
Okay, so for I guess for a vote on the current board, do we have any ayes?
Yes. Aye. Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
I hear no nays. So I guess the board has been reinstated or continues. Thank you all so much.
It's a landslide, Christopher.
It was a landslide, yes. All right, everybody, thank you. And with this, we'll conclude the meeting. And thank you all very much. And thank you, Senator Jackson, for staying with us to make sure that we were doing things right.
Thank you all.
Yes, stay cool,
All right.
everybody.
And thank you, Tevin.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Have a good night, everyone.